Um, so welcome, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's class, right? And today I'm just going to talk about this. I'm going to talk about populate, count, and distance in Mongoose. How you can use those commands or method to maybe get maybe query your database and then get results. Okay, so we talk about populate, count, and distance, right? And of course, if we talk about count, we're talking about knowing the number of times something occurs, right? Then in the database, like for example, you can use count to know maybe how many people registered today, or how many, or maybe how many people maybe do something at a particular time, or just to get the number of maybe stuff that happen, right? You can use count, right? Then you can use populate to populate the user ID of someone or the ID of a particular maybe query, right? And then distinct is just used, as the name implies, is used to get distinct results, right? But then we'll see how each of these actually works out in real life, right? How we can use each of them to achieve different results. Okay, so VS Code. Let me share my VS Code screen for you guys to see. All right. Let me go over there. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Okay. Yeah, sure. Okay. So I guess you guys start my VS Code screen right about now. Okay. Right. You guys can see my VS Code screen. Let me increase the font for you guys to see. Okay. So let's see how we can actually use. Let's start with Populate, right? Now, uh, if you notice, right? When we were saving, let's go to our user schema, right? Or let's go to our task schema, right? I remember that our task schema had task title, had task body, had picture, and then we saved this as user, and then we said user should be mongoose or schema dot type dot object ID, and we are referring to the user, which is this user schema with this name of users, right? That's what we are referring to. But then what if I wanted to get maybe a particular tax, but when I'm getting that tax, right? On this user part, right? I don't just want to get the user property as the user ID. I want to get the user property as the full user, his name and everything, right? So how do I actually do that? Now we use populate to do that, right? So let's see how you can use populate to do that. Let me spin up the server and then we'll see how we can achieve that. npm start and then let's see. And let me open my okay. Let me see what database I actually used. I think I used an online database. Okay, so let's see. Let me try to log in. Uh, let me see. Yeah, okay. I've been able to fully log in, right? And then let me use that to get my task, right? So let's see. Let me try to use what I've just gotten to get my task. So I can say post to HTTP colon localhost localhost 4000, I guess, slash one slash um let me come back here and say authorization should be there, and then that token. But then what's there's something missing here. Let me see. To get all my tasks, right? I would have to go slash zero one slash tasks. Then okay. Okay. So I think I'll send the get request tasks. Right. So today get request is like v1/tasks. Right. If I send that request now, okay, it means I don't have a task. So let me just add some few tasks. So I'll say post there, then I'll come down there. I just want to add a task. So I'll say content type is application/JSON on. Then the task title, let's say task title is task one, or let's say task one. Okay, let me just say task one, right? Then you come down here and say task body should be here. Here is my first task. Let me send that and see if it's going to stay. Okay, so it says request successful through. Then let me add some filters. Say the second pass, right? Or um, let me still use task one, right? Task one, but I'll do like this in here. I'll say here is another task with the same title, right? I'm adding two tasks with exactly the same title, right? Now, let's see. After adding those two tasks, if I try to get back my task, right? If I try to get back my list of tasks, right? If I change this to a get request and I send that request, see that we have the ID, we have the tax title, we have tax body. There's no picture name because I didn't actually put any picture. But then this user here is just sending the ID, right? So what if I wanted to add, what if instead of sending the user's ID, I want it that the user's details should be sent back with this user here? How do I do that? Now, that's where Populate comes in.
Sorry, I
Right?
have a question.
Okay. Okay.
That
Ask.
ID, the ID and the user is not really the same.
You said the ID and the user.
Yes.
You mean this ID and this user ID?
Yes.
Yeah, the ID is the ID of that particular document, right? This user
Okay.
ID refers to the user that owns that particular document.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so this is going to be different from this, right? You see, if we have that. So what we are trying to say here on the database, what we are trying to model here is we are saying this user has this document and this same user has this other document here. So that's why this user ID is on the both documents. Can you see that?
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. So that's how you use that to know who owns a document or who owns a particular record, right? Or a particular document on any table, right? So you can always link IDs like that, right? But now here is just returning the user, right? It's just returning the user's ID. What if I want to add the user's detail to this user ID? But instead of running two queries, I can do the same thing on one query. So this is what I'll do. I'll go to, I think, Start.js, and here, okay, on this get, we are just finding the user where we are finding all the tags where the user is the particular user that is requesting for that tax. So here, if I want to add the user's detail, I could say dot populate. Dot populate, and then inside the populate, you're going to pass in the string that you want to populate or the parts, right? And remember that it is our user, that user detail, right? Or that user property that I want to populate. So I could then say populate user, right? If I say populate user and I come back here and I make that request again, you see that it will show something a bit different, right? Look, now we don't have just the user ID. See, for each task is sending back, it's sending the user, but it's not just sending his ID, right? It's sending every other thing that has to do with him. It's sending the full name, the email, the role, well, the password, which is the hash password, and the
Okay.
created and updated at, right?
Yeah, this is how to return user object.
Yeah, so this
Yeah.
is not out. This is not just. This is just used if you want to return the user and the what do they call the if you want to return the tax, but maybe you have something you want to populate, right? Maybe like this user now want to populate the user ID, the user's details, right here. So instead of you making two requests, maybe you maybe down here on your you know, another way to do the same thing, right? But another less, let's say less efficient ways to do is to try to query the user and then you now say maybe something like const user should be equals to await user collection dot find. Then you now say, okay, you now say find by ID, where the ID is tasks dot user, right? Doing this is going to return the user here. So you can then return the task and the user. But this is me killing two birds with one stone, right? Getting the task and for the users for that task, I also like kind of join the users detail inside the task, right? But then this is also dangerous. Like not really too dangerous, but you shouldn't reveal the password of the user, right? So how do we restrict like showing the password to whoever is querying this database, right? After, so here what you're saying is you want to populate the user property. So instead of it showing just the ID to show the user's detail, but then you can add a filter here. So this filter you want to say that maybe you don't want to return the password. Remember I said you don't want to return something, right? Minus, right? And you now say maybe password that way, right? So if you do that and come back and make that request again, let's send that request again. Uh, you see here now, we already have the full name, email, role, created at and updated at. Because of what I did here, right? Because of what I did on the query, I said I want to populate. What I'm saying here is in the tax collection, find all tax that belongs to this user with this user ID. Then when you get all those tags, you want to populate the user's property inside each of those tasks, right? But then for each of those users that are populating or for each of those tasks that are populating the user, I want to remove the password from that document, right? Or if I just want to maybe return only his first name and or his full name and his role, right? I think it's full name and role. Let me make the request again to see. What if I wanted to return only full name and maybe full name and email? Then here too, I'll come down, I'll return full name and email. This is what I will do. Here I'll just say, I'll simply say I want to return his full name. Don't put comma. Don't say full name, comma, email. Just say full name space email. So now by default, it's going to populate the user, but apart from returning the full name and email, it will always return the ID of that user. So when we do that and we come back here and we send that request, right? Coming back here to preview it, you see that it only on the tax, it sends everything about the tax, but it also sends the user's detail, which is his full name and email, and of course his ID. if we check, the next one, right? It's still the same thing. His full name, his email, right? So, uh, well, this can be useful if you're maybe working with maybe data that belong to a particular, maybe another collection, right? Maybe you have users and you have users posts, right? Users post as a different collection, and you want to always show the user or yeah, the user that posted a particular post when you're getting maybe the list of posts. Maybe if you're creating something like a blog, right? You have users, then you have maybe the blogs collection, right? You can get all blogs and then populate the user of each of those blog posts so that while you're showing the blog, right, you can also show maybe the user of or the details of the user that posted that particular blog, right? So that's how you can use the count, right? So that's how you can use populate, right? Then let's move on, right? Do you guys have any question? Who has any question on how to use the populate? Anybody?
Please, Victor. See, I want to ask this populate the user. Actually, it is bringing out all the tasks performed by that particular user, isn't it? With that email
Yes.
address. With that
Yes.
email address. Because I know this is not the only task you perform
Is it with
since we
what?
started here. Since we started this, but this is the one you perform using this particular information, maybe the email address or what. But I think, isn't it?
You're not using the email. You're not using the email. You're not using the email address to get the user. Remember that this user was just an ID that was returned. Let me come back here and remove the whole populate that I put here. Right? Let me remove it and let's see what it was returning. So
I want to know the
I've removed.
criteria for sorting out and fetching this information of the user.
Okay, let's go back to collection and let's see. On the tax collection, remember that each task has a tax title, a tax body, a picture, which is by default an empty string. Then
Okay.
it has a user property. Remember that user property is not of type of string. Remember, we are saying that the user here is a type of object ID, right? And then we are saying that this REF means reference. So we are saying that anytime that anytime we want to populate this user property, that it should make reference to the user's schema, which is this user here. You understand? So what happens is when we try to populate this user, which is the ID of the owner of that particular tax, it now checks this reference and knows that okay, the ID that is saved here, the reference of that ID is on this user schema. So it will come to the user schema and check for the user that has that ID. Then it will pick his details and then automatically populate it here and send it back to you. Right? That is if you're using populate, if you're using that populate here, right? Where is it? If you're using populate, that's when it is going to do that for you. If you don't add this populate, it's not going to populate it for you. It's just going to allow it. So if I remove the populate and I make that request again, you're going to see that it's just going to send me the user ID alone. Right? It's just see it here. It's sending me the task, but it's not sending me the details of that user. It's just sending me all the tasks, but it's just sending me the user ID like that. But this might not be what I want because if you send maybe this task like this, let's say this was a real time, like a real maybe a real API, right? And then you query to get the tags, all the tags for a specific user, right? Or let's say you're querying to get the tags for every user, but all the tasks that is coming back with just the user ID like this. How do you know the particular user that has that task, right? So
Mhm.
that will mean maybe you might try to maybe look through each of these tasks to query the database for each of the users again. But a simpler way to do it will just be to use that populate. Populate is similar in a way, like I think it's like using join, trying to join two tables, but it's not exactly like that, right? What this one does is it just goes to a user's collection and then find a user that has this ID and then automatically populates his information into this user. I hope you understand.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so if you come back here and I add that populate now. So I'm saying populate user, but after populating the user, while populating the user, only populates his first name and email. And of course, his ID is going to come back. So making that request now is going to it's going to give me that user's detail, but instead of just giving me the ID alone, it's also sending me the full name and the email. That this previously and was a string, right? But now it's an object. Okay. All right. So let's continue. Then, how about if you want to get if you wanted to get the total number of tasks, right, um on this bucket, right? How do we do that? You know, I know some people might know what to do or to be to say maybe task count, right? You might write something like task count. Then I'll say assign RQ, RAS, and then down here the simplest way to do it would be const uh task count equals to await uh task collection dot find. Then maybe you can come down here and say uh return or not return, you say res dot send, right? Then you can then come here and say uh total task total task should be task count dot length. Yeah, this will give you the correct answer, right? But then there's a shorter way of doing this, right? If you want to know the total task you have, which is I think it's like two tasks. So if I said what what did I mean task count? So if I said task slash task count, task slash task count. You see, it's saying we have 5 tasks, right? But then there's still another way to write the same thing. So the simplest way to actually write it would be to write something like this. Yeah, you said dot count. So here you can just say you can just come here and say task count, right? And if you go back and query your DB, you see it's still going to return 5 to it, right? It's exactly the same thing, but also this task count can like accept maybe arguments, for example. So you can say you want to get the task count where the user is this particular user, right? So you can count the tasks that a particular user has, right? So let's see if you send that request, you see that that particular user has a task count of 2, right? So task is to count, right? It's like more simple. It's simpler than the population, right? Then what is left? Then distinct in Mongoose, right? Distance in Mongoose looks similar, right? So distance is used to get distinct data. Like for example, um, if you have duplicate data, for example, um, let's take a store for example, right? A store can have maybe different categories of uh, um, okay, let's take a store and the different categories that the store has and the products, for example. So let's say you want to know the total number of maybe categories the store has. I don't know. Just follow me. Let me try and explain this well. If you have a store and let's say the store has categories, let's say maybe the categories are like maybe they have. Well, let's take a restaurant. The restaurant has maybe continental dishes, intercontinental dishes, right? And then let's say it has under intercontinental dishes, it has like 20 different dishes, right? For intercontinental, and then it has maybe 5 dishes for continental, for their continental dish menu, right? But then you want to find out how many maybe um, or how many categories of like dish or recipe or whatever they have. You can then query that continental, right? You can query that continental and just, or you can query the food menu, right? The menu that has all the 20 dishes to get distinct, maybe uh, uh, continental dish, right? Or intercontinental dish like that. Then, if you query it, you're going to get two results, which is going to be continental, intercontinental, which is like the total number of maybe type of food they offer, right? That's the usefulness of distance. Distance is just used to filter out duplicates. That's the simplest definition I can actually give you. If you have maybe repeated data on a particular what do they call it, on a particular collection, and then you want to filter out the duplicates and get only the unique ones. So let's take for example maybe on our tax now. Then we have tax one appearing like 5 times. We have tax two appearing like 3 times. We have tax three appearing like 20 times. But you just want to get unique tax, right? Maybe by the tax title. You can then use something like this thing to query your database and just get only those unique task, right? So if you wanted to do that here, you can say, you can come here and say, okay, let me put it down under here as another route, right? So I'll say route dot get, and then I'll say here that we are trying to get unique task, right? Or unique tasks by title, right? Or let's just say unique task title, right? Then here you say async REQ, RES. Then you can say unique tasks should be equals to await uh counts documents. Okay, we are back, right? If you are using the recent version, right, of Mongoose, you'll see count documents. It will tell you that count is created. So this counts documents, and it's basically the same thing, right? The same way count works is the same way like count documents works. You can put in your arguments here, count documents where the user is that particular, where the user is that particular user. Okay. And let's go and make that request again to see if it's still going to give us the same result. Still gives us the same result. So whether it's count or count documents is actually the same thing. In case you see it, then let's go back to distinct, right? I'll say I want to select distinct where the task title is where the task title is okay, sorry. I want to select distinct task title. Okay. And then we'll say response.send, let's just say unique tasks, right? So I want to select that. Now, another thing I need to put to your knowledge is you must not use it like find, maybe then you can give it your query here, maybe find where something is. If you can even do the same thing with count, you can use find.count, or you can use find dot distance, right? It's not by must, it must be task collection dot distance. You can change them, right? So if you come back and test this, it's what do I call it? Unique task title, right? Come back here and test it out. You see that we have, remember that we had tax 1 twice and we had maybe simple tax, right? If I remove that, uh, sorry, if I remove that distinct, right? If I remove that distinct, I'll just say dot find. And let me make that request. Let's see. A sample task, the sample task, they are able to sample, okay, they are able 3 sample tasks, and then there's tax 1, there's tax 1. That's like 5, right? You see, tax one has repeated itself twice, and then sample task has repeated itself like 3 times, right? But then using the distance, right? Using the distance now has made it possible for us to filter those tasks, right? Like filter the duplicates out. So I'd say that distance where the where I want to filter the task title. So it is now going to return to me unique. What did I just type? It's going to return to me unique tasks. Where is it? Okay, I think this should be it. So you see, if I make that request now, you see that it's just only sending me the unique tax title. So I can filter by maybe any other criteria. I can say, okay, I want the unique dates, right? I want the unique dates of of maybe whatever I actually want. Maybe I want to filter by created ads or by updated ads or any of those stuff. Or I can filter by maybe the tax body, or I can filter by the user to get the unique users. Right? I could say I want to filter by a user, right? And if I make that request, to just send me back the IDs. So maybe this user, right, this user might have like 20 tasks, or let's say it might have like 3 tasks. This other one might have like 2 tasks, right? But then it's not sending me like it's not sending me this like 3 times or this one like 2 times. It's just sending it once as soon as it sees it, and it's it just sends me the unique IDs, right, for those users. So that's how you can use to maybe filter out, maybe remove what you don't want from a particular query, right? So do you guys have any question? Any question or any concern? Who has any question?
So basically, you can filter anything you want, title, ID,
Yeah,
body, if there is need for that.
yes, you can.
Okay.
Yeah. And you can join it. You can filter and count, for example. So for example, if I want to maybe filter and count, right? Maybe I want to find out how many unique users I have. Although instead of filtering and counting the user, right? Why didn't you just go to the user database, right? And just find out and just count the number of users there using the count or count document. But if you want to do that, here you can say distinct user. Okay, you can. Another reason why you might even want to do such a thing is maybe you want to find out the number of users that have at least one task, right? Because there might be a user that doesn't have any task at all, right? So that user is not going to show up here if you try to filter and count, or if you try to filter like select distinct users. You can have like 5 users, but the users that have task might just be like 2, right? You can say task collection.distinct users.count. So if we query that, it's going to give you 2. What happened? Is there any place I said, okay, let me check my query. So I said task collection dot select distinct user dot count. So there's an error somewhere saying it's at tax.js line 26. Okay, so what is it saying on line 26? Oh, okay. I think I understand what is happening. Right? So I was supposed to say unique tasks so that it is going to send it as an object, not it's now thinking that since this unique task is giving back a number and I passed it directly to send, it's thinking I'm trying to send a response code of maybe like 2. So it's telling me that instead of me sending a response code like that I should have sent it using, I should have sent that response code using maybe something like send, is it send, what was it telling me? So I would have used send status instead of send, right, to send my status, right? All right, so let me make that request again. All right, and if you come here, you see, unique tasks is 5. Okay, so let's go back. Let's see what did I do wrong there? What did I do wrong? Okay, select distinct user, right? Then you remove this count and see what is going to send back. Um, send that request. Okay, it's showing. It's showing. I'm supposed to call this unique users. Unique users is 2, right? But then if I say dot count, okay, I think count is trying to count the number of tasks I have, right? Okay, okay. So I don't think you can actually like chain it like that. I think if you want to get the unique users, right? Unique users, we would say unique users is going to be unique users dot length. So that is going to give you 2, which is going to be what is correct. Yeah, so unique users is 2, right? So most times, right, when you write these things, you always have to test them because they might sometimes not give you the results that you actually expected, right? They might not give you that result, but that's the reason why you have to test it to be very sure of like what you're trying to do, right? All right. So who has any question? Who has a question? Nobody has any question. Okay. So I guess in the absence or in the absence of any question, right? You can call it a day today, right? At least we've learned about count, we've learned about populate, and we've learned about distinct, right? And you can use it to uh, populate, right? Is used to add maybe details to a particular maybe to a particular property, right? Of an object, right? Or of your query, right? Then you know the account is used to count, right? You guys need to know how many maybe amount of records you have for a particular maybe for a particular user in a table or in a particular collection. Right, then you know that you can use these things to pick unique details about something, right? All right, so since there is no question, right, we can call it a day. And for Ladell said he had an issue with his query, and I remember I was supposed to drop a link the last time we had class, but so that people will be able to join and then share their complaints on maybe what they tried to do and it wasn't working. But I think I didn't remember to drop that day, right? But I'm going to do that
Yeah,
today.
and that
I'll drop.
time too. That time last week you said 6. That time I was in transit. There's no way I could share my screen then.
Okay. So I'm sorry for that, right? I guess as soon as I left there, right, as soon as I finished the class, I think something came up that I needed to move like immediately. So while I moved and I was trying to sort out like what I what needed my attention, I didn't remember to like maybe come back and maybe drop the link. And it was later on that I remember that I was supposed to do it, but then it was already like really late, so I couldn't do it anymore. So sorry about that. Okay, you can sort out whatever challenge you have today. Okay.
All right.
All right. So let's call it a day. Right? Thank you very much for coming out for today's class, and we'll see you on Thursday. All right?